Welcome to the Operating System Lecture Module 2. The objective of this lecture is to understand the fundamental concepts of process scheduling. The contents of the Module 2 Part 1 lecture are basic process scheduling concepts, process and process states, scheduler and dispatcher. Then we will see the scheduling categories and the scheduling criteria. First of all, let us see what is a program and what is a process. Program is a group of instructions, whereas process is an activity. That is, program contains a set of instructions designed to complete a specific task. It is a passive entity as it resides in the secondary memory. A program becomes a process when loaded into memory so that it can be executed by the CPU, and thus it is an active entity. Program is passive entity such as contains a file stored on a disk. A process is active. It has program code, input, output, and a state. That is, a process is an instance of a program running on a computer. One program can have several processes. The attributes held by a process includes the hardware states, memory utilization, CPU utilization, and the progress of the execution information. Let us see what is process scheduling. CPU scheduling is the basis of multiprogramming. We have seen in the first module the objective of multiprogramming is to have some process running all the time to maximize the CPU utilization. What does it mean? If we are not utilizing the CPU fully, then we will be wasting the resources. The objective of time sharing is to switch the CPU among processes so frequently that users can interact with each program while it is running. To meet the objectives, process scheduler selects an available process, possibly from a set of several available processes for execution on the CPU. For a single process system, there will never be more than one running process. If there are more processes, the rest will have to wait until the CPU is free and can be rescheduled. Process scheduler will take care of this. That is, which process should run, which process should wait, and which process should swap out will decide by the scheduler. Thus, the objectives of multiprogramming and time sharing are resource sharing and computational speed up. Next is process states. What do you mean by process state? We have seen that programming execution is a process. What is the current activity of a process? That indicates the process state. As process executes, it changes state. Now let us see what are the various process states. The first state is new. It is a state of a process just being created. Next state is ready state. After the process is created, before it starts running, it has to assign CPU for execution. That means it is ready for execution. Once the process gets the CPU, it starts execution. That is the running state. In running state, process holds the CPU. Next state is waiting. What is waiting? Waiting means process is waiting for an event to occur. Event can be an I/O operation. Till the completion of the I/O operation, process is put in the suspended queue. When process finishes all the instruction execution, it exits and enters into the last state, which is called terminated state. these are the various process states. This diagram shows the various process states and how these process changes from one state to another. Once a new process is created, it enters into the ready queue for execution. When it starts execution, there are three cases can occur. The first case is after executing the instruction, process exit and enters into the terminated state. Next case is there can be interrupt when the process is being executed. That is, during the execution, there may be some other process with a higher priority came and this process gets interrupted. Then this process goes back to the ready state again. Once the interrupt executed, it again be dispatched and this process can again begin execution and go to the running state. The third case is when it is running, it needs to wait for an IO event. At that time, it goes to waiting state and stay in the waiting state until the completion of the event. Once this IO operation is completed, it enters to ready state again and the scheduler dispatch will take it to the running state for the execution of the remaining instructions. So those are the various process states. From the process state transition diagram, we have seen how a process moves from one state to another. The first transition is from state new to ready state. When the system is ready to take a new process in its ready queue, operating system will submit it to ready queue. That is, the process moves from new to ready state. And the second transition is ready to running. When it is time to select a new process to run, the operating system chooses one of the process from ready queue to run. And that is the process moves from ready to run when it is dispatched by the scheduler. And third one is running to ready. When the running process has reached the maximum allowable time for uninterrupted execution, it moves to ready queue. Another alternative is that if operating system assigns different priority levels to different processes, then it is possible for a process to shift to ready queue from running state to ready state with the arrival of a higher priority process which is blocked earlier, or when it is preempted by the scheduler when an interrupt occurs. That is the running to ready state. And next is running to blocked state. A process is put in the blocked state if it requires something for which it must wait. That it may be a resource request or an IO operation. That is the running to blocked transition. Next is blocked to ready. A process in the blocked state is moved to ready state when the event for which it has been waiting occurs. That is when the completion of the request is signaled. And the last one is running to exit. The currently running process is terminated by the operating system if the process indicates that it has completed or if it aborts. Next is process control block. Each process is represented in the operating system as a process control block, abbreviated as PCB. It is also called task control block. It contains the information associated with each process. This table represents the PCB. Let us see what are the PCB comprises. It is a data structure holding process number, that is process ID or number is a unique ID to identify a process. Then there is a process state. Process state is the state at which that particular process at that particular moment. Next is program counter. Program counter stores the address of the next instruction to be executed in that particular process. Next is CPU registers. CPU registers tells us that what are the CPU registers used by that process. Next is CPU scheduling information. CPU scheduling information has the scheduling information regarding this process, that are priority of the processes, pointer to the scheduling queue, and the other scheduling parameters. As we have seen, scheduling determines the which process to be executed next. Next we will have memory management information. It represents the memory used by a process. Next is accounting information. It keeps an account of the list of resources that are used by the process. Lastly, we have I/O status information. It represents which are the I/O devices assigned to a particular process. These are the things stored in the PCB that represents the different aspects of a particular process. Now let us see what is a CPU scheduler. It is an operating system module that selects next job for execution. It selects one process from among the ready processes that are loaded into the memory and allocates the CPU for execution. CPU scheduling decisions may take place during the following situations, that are the first case when a process switches from running to waiting state. Second case is when a process switches from running to ready state. And the third case is when a process switches from waiting to ready state, and the last case is when the process terminates. Among this, scheduling under cases 1 and 4 are non-preemptive. All other cases, that is the case 2 and 3, are preemptive scheduling. The primary objective of scheduling is to optimize system performance. A single processor may be shared among several processors. CPU scheduling deals with the problem of deciding which of the process in ready queue is to be allocated CPU for execution, with some scheduling algorithm being used to determine when to stop work on one process and service a different one. Major division among the several scheduling algorithms is preemptive or non-preemptive discipline. Let us see what is non-preemptive scheduling. Once a process has been allocated to the CPU, that process keeps the CPU until it releases the CPU either by terminating or by requesting I/O operation. That means once a process has been allocated to the CPU cannot be taken away from the process forcibly. Hence, a running process is not forced to relinquish ownership for the processor when a higher priority process becomes ready for execution. That is, once scheduled, a selected job runs to the completion. In this scheduling, there may be a situation can arise that jobs are made to wait by longer jobs, but treatment of all processes is fairer in this scheduling. The algorithms used in non-preemptive discipline are first come first serve, shortest job first, and the details about these algorithms will be described in the coming session. The second category is preemptive scheduling. Preemption means operating system moves a process from running to ready without the process requesting it. Preemptive scheduling is a CPU scheduling technique that works by dividing time slots of CPU to a given process. The time slot given might be able to complete the whole process or might not be able to. When the burst time of the process is greater than the CPU cycle, it is placed back into the ready queue and will execute in the next chance. Algorithm switches to the processing of a new request before completing the processing of the current request. In this scheduling, a running process may be replaced by a higher priority process at any time. That is, a running process may be interrupted at any time. Preempted request is put back to the pending request list and returned again when it gets rescheduled. Preemptive scheduling is useful in high priority process which requires immediate response. Algorithms used in this category are round robin scheduling, priority based scheduling, and shortest remaining time next scheduling. The decision whether to schedule preemptive or not depends on the environment and type of application most likely to be supported by the operating system. Now let us see the type of schedulers that are used for both preemptive and non-preemptive type of processes. As we have seen, schedulers are special system software which handle process scheduling in various ways. Process scheduling handles the selection of a process for the processor on the basis of a scheduling algorithm and also the removal of a process from the processor. It is an important part of multiprogramming operating system. As shown in this figure, there are many scheduling queues that are used in process scheduling. When the process enters the system, they are put into the job queue. The processes that are ready to execute in the main memory are kept in the ready queue. The processes that are waiting for the I/O device are kept in the I/O device queue. There are three types of schedulers available, that are long-term scheduler, short-term scheduler, and medium-term scheduler. From the figure, it is clear that long-term scheduler is the job scheduler that selects processes from the storage pool in the secondary memory and loads them into the ready queue in the main memory for execution. The short-term scheduler allocates the CPU the pool of ready processes, and medium-term scheduler handles the swapped out processes. Now let us see when a long-term scheduler works. The long-term scheduler is also called a job scheduler. It selects processes from the storage pool in the secondary memory and loads them into the ready queue in main memory for execution. Long-term scheduler executes relatively infrequently and makes the decision of whether or not to take a new process and when one to take. That is, when the job comes into memory. It must select a careful mixture of I/O bound and CPU bound processes to yield optimum system throughput. If it selects too many CPU bound processes, then the I/O devices are idle, and if it selects too many I/O bound processes, then the processor has nothing to do. Hence, it controls the degree of multiprogramming. Next is short-term scheduler. It is also called CPU scheduler. The short-term scheduler selects one of the process from the ready queue and schedules for execution. A scheduling algorithm is used to decide which process will be scheduled for the execution next. It contains three functions. The first function is to remove a process from the processor at the end of its execution. then process may go to ready queue or to a wait state. Second function is to put a process on the ready queue. That is, for selecting a process for CPU allocation, the process must be ready to run and the process placed on ready queue based on the priority. Third function is to take a process from the ready queue and run that process, which is also called a dispatcher. It always takes the first process on the queue, that is which doesn't require any intelligence, and then assign the process to the CPU. The short-term scheduler executes much more frequently than the long-term scheduler, as a process may execute only for a few milliseconds. The primary aim of this scheduler is to enhance the CPU performance and increase process execution rate. Next is medium-term scheduler. The functionalities of the medium-term schedulers are the mixture of CPU and memory resource management. Its speed is in between the long-term and short-term scheduler. Hence it is called medium-term scheduler. During the execution of a process, when an I/O operation is required, then the operating system sends that process from running queue to blocked queue. When a process completes its I/O operation, then it should again be shifted to the ready queue. All these decisions are taken by the medium-term scheduler. A running process may become suspended if it makes an I/O request. A suspended process cannot make any progress towards completion. In this condition, to remove the process from memory and make space for other processes, the suspended process is removed to the secondary storage. This process is called swapping, and the process is said to be swapped out and rolled out. The medium-term scheduler is a part of swapping and also called process swapping scheduler. It is in charge of handling the swap out processes. It swaps out a process from main memory. It can again swap in the process later from the point it stopped executing. This can also called as suspending and resuming the process. Swapping is also useful in improve the mixture of I/O bound and CPU bound processes in the memory. This scheduler removes the process from memory and from active contention for the CPU, and thus reduces the degree of multiprogramming. Next topic is dispatcher. A dispatcher is a special program which comes into play after the scheduler. When the scheduler completes its job of selecting a process, it is the dispatcher which takes that process to the desired state or queue. It is the dispatcher who takes that process from the ready queue and moves it into the running state. Therefore, the scheduler gives the dispatcher an ordered list of processes which the dispatcher moves to the CPU over time. The dispatcher is a module that gives a process control over the CPU after it has been selected by the short-term scheduler. This function involves, first function is switching context, in which the dispatcher saves the state, also known as context, of the process or thread that was previously running. The dispatcher then loads the initial or previously saved state of the next program to be executed. Second function is switching to kernel mode, from kernel mode to user mode. Then jumping to the proper location in the user program to restart that program. The dispatcher should be as fast as possible, since it is involved during every process switch. During the context switches, the processor is virtually idle for a fraction of time. Thus, unnecessary context switches should be avoided. The time it takes for the dispatcher to stop one process and start another is known as the dispatch latency. Now let us see what are the scheduling and optimization criteria. There are several different criteria to consider when trying to select the best scheduling algorithm for a particular situation and environment. The common performance measures and optimization criteria that schedulers may use in attempting to maximize system performance include: first one, CPU utilization, means keep the CPU as busy as possible. Ideally, the CPU would be busy 100% of the time, so as to waste zero CPU cycle. On a real system, CPU usage should range from 40% to 90%. That is, 40% will be a lightly loaded process and 90% will be heavy loaded system. And second criteria is throughput. Throughput means it is the number of processes that completed their execution in a particular time unit. And third criteria is the turnaround time. Turnaround time, it is the time required for a particular process to complete from submission to completion. And the fourth criteria is waiting time. It is the amount of time a process spent in the ready queue waiting their turn to get on the CPU. And the fifth criteria is response time. It is the amount of time it takes from when a request was submitted until the first response is produced, not the complete output. In general, one wants to optimize the average value of a criteria, that is, maximize the CPU utilization and throughput and minimize all others, that is, minimize the turnaround time, waiting time and the response time, and maximize the CPU utilization and throughput. The summary of this lecture is that the process scheduling is the activity of the process manager that handles the removal of the running process from the CPU and the selection of another process on the basis of a particular strategy. In this lecture, we have covered the basic concepts of process scheduling, that are: what is a process, what are the various process states, need of the process scheduling, different types of schedulers used, and the various process scheduling criteria to obtain optimum system performance. These are the references of this lecture. Thank you.